Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back. My wife and I have been lucky enough to visit Korea twice in the past few years. We've visited Seoul, Busan, and more. And every time I'm reminded that imaginative world building doesn't start with imagination, it starts with observation. Patterns, colors, shapes, they're everywhere. You can't invent a fictional world from nothing. You riff off of what's real. Walking through palaces and temples that date back to the Joseon dynasty, which started in 1392 and lasted till 1897 AD, you're surrounded by design. Joseon era art is full of balance, geometry meeting spirit, and it's the direct visual inspiration for the world of One Last Monster. Those vivid dancheong colors, for example, the painted patterns you see on palace beams and ceilings, weren't just decoration, they were considered to be forms of protection and prayer. In One Last Monster, you see the same logic. Ordered lines around chaos, bright colors holding back the dark. One Last Monster owes a ton to the aesthetics of the Joseon dynasty. The amazing thing about traveling as an artist is that if you keep an open mind, everything becomes inspiring. Recreating those details I saw in ancient Joseon palaces one-to-one would have been impossible on an indie budget. But that limitation gave me the freedom to create my own visual style for directing Adin. Simplifying, remixing, and layering textures gave Adin its own sense of history. And then you walk through modern Seoul, with its technology, energy, and neon layered on top of centuries of tradition. For me, that clash between old and new, Asian and Western influence, it feels alive. And as a Korean American who grew up in the East Coast, it's both familiar and strange. Kind of like One Last Monster itself. The film has traditional roots, but it's reborn through anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and myth to become its own thing. That's a principle I've also carried throughout my whole creative career. Combine things that don't seem to belong together initially and see what happens. George Lucas did that. He mixed samurai films, westerns, and World War II movies to create Star Wars. Rock and roll came about the same way, out of blues and gospel music colliding. So when you're in a place like Seoul, so full of contrasts, it's impossible not to think that way creatively. If you're designing your own world, study one that already exists. Get out there and travel if you can. Look for surprising combinations hiding in plain sight in patterns, colors, and everyday details. That is where imagination begins. Thanks for tuning in again. If you'd like to support the channel and the work I'm doing with One Last Monster, please consider subscribing and joining our Patreon. The links are below. Have a great day, and thank you.